I was actually about to go into retreat, just a weekend silent retreat, and talking to Jeff about like how I wanted to orient towards my practice and realizing that I was really in these mental loops. Like it was hard to get out of the story. And he asked me that question, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And it just fucking hit me. I'd never heard it phrased like that. Of course, that is the foundation of meditation practice, of dharma, of any liberation teaching. But as just a succinct question was so powerful and profound.
Welcome to Cosmic Clowns, a podcast about exploring consciousness, surviving chaos, and finding the comedy in it all. I'm Jocelyn K. Glei, an energy worker, a writer, a recovering perfectionist, and a Gemini sun who literally loves nothing more than a good conversation about ideas.
And I'm Sebenay Selassie, a teacher and writer, a matcha drinker, a student of tarot and astrology, and a proud crybaby. In today's episode, we're exploring whether needing to be right is a hindrance to our freedom. A few years ago, I was stuck in mental loops around my divorce, and my friend and fellow meditation nerd, Jeff Warren, asked me, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And after picking my jaw back up off the floor, I realized the immense power of this inquiry. Yes, we will talk about how this provocative question can shift our attitude when engaged in conflicts with others, but we'll also delve into how our perfectionism and need for certainty can also benefit from this framing. Do you want to be right or do you want to be free is an invitation to look at all the ways we limit liberation when we need the present moment to be anything other than, well, the present moment. We'll investigate if and how anytime we desire to change ourselves, others, or the world, we can look at if it's coming from certitude or clarity, from clinging or curiosity, from competition or connection, and ask ourselves whether we want to be right or be free. But before we get started, let's do a check-in. Jocelyn, how are you doing today?
I'm a little foggy, a little low today. You and I, when we were contemplating this podcast, did a whole sort of demo episode on brain fog. Um, and it's interesting. I have been feeling a lot better. That's not been a constant feature of my daily life, which has been amazing. And so it's kind of interesting to have it, have the fog kind of roll back in and be like, oh, like, as a point of contrast. So it's making me very grateful that I did have some relief from that state, and I kind of expect that I will again. It is, I'm a little slower in everything that, I'm trying to do the past few days, and just sort of wondering what the origin is. I was saying to you before we hit record that I was at a gathering of a variety of different healers last night, and we had all been kind of feeling sort of low and slow and foggy, and it's like, what is that? It's like, is it solar flares? Is it the collective anxiety? Like, I'm always so curious about like what's mine, what's the collectives, what's ours, and but of course there's no way to actually know or to parse it out at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it fascism or is it my feelings?
Yeah. Constant question these days.
Yeah.
How are you doing
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, all the same. I think I mentioned last time that I'm like very relieved to know what's going on in my body, that I have this raging infection that for somehow I'm not being floored by, but it does explain kind of the fatigue and pain and the ensuing frustration. And now that I know, and we'll be going into surgery a week from today, um, there's also like, oh, now I can kind of fall apart in a in a way. I'm really tired and
Yeah.
finally allowing myself to feel it because the finish line is so near, and, yeah, but I still have a few things to do. I have a retreat and some other teaching going on this week, and just, yeah, like, yeah, capitalism is a fucking dick. Um, and I'm also been navigating my sister being in rehab. I'm her guardian,
Mm.
and just like I got to see you in person on Saturday because I was on the way back
Yeah,
from there,
so
which was
fun.
really sweet. Yeah, impromptu lunch with my friend Michelle and you, which was really fun. But yeah, just like exhausted by it all. Like, her situation, my situation. And also today happens to be the death anniversary of my mom 9 years ago, November
Mhm.
17th, we're recording this. And so I was feeling tender about that. I have her picture here.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just kind of have a candle burning. And yeah, so just kind of in my feels and allowing
Yeah.
myself to just be gentle with myself, and um, allowing the tears to flow when they need to.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. I'm glad she's
Yeah.
here with us.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Sweet.
So I think we both have I think for this topic that we wanna delve into today, we both kind of have a sort of story or kind of a little story that happened to us that really made us start to think about this question and this topic. And you shared a little bit about yours at the intro, but I wanted to see if you just wanted to share like kind of a little bit more about like how that came about and the context of that incredible question that your friend asked you.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It was, a few years ago. So I was, very recently separated, going through the divorce, and just stuck in these mental loops of um not complete blame, also trying to take responsibility for my part um in the separation and in the discord that we had at the end of our relationship, but really feeling a lot of righteousness in terms of the
Mm,
things that I felt were happening to me. And I was actually about to go into retreat, just a weekend silent retreat, and talking to Jeff about like how I wanted to orient towards my practice, and realizing that I was really in these mental loops. Like it was hard to get out of the story, you know.
yeah.
And he asked me that question, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And it just fucking hit me. I'd never heard it phrased like that. Of course,
Yeah.
that is the foundation of meditation practice, of dharma, of any liberation teaching. But as just a succinct question was so
Yeah.
powerful and profound.
Mhm.
And that retreat, it was the first time since, it had been many months by that point, 6 or so months since we'd separated. I had the first taste of freedom from those mental
Mm,
loops, and really
mm,
sweet moments in nature, sustained. Of course, it wasn't like I was always in that for those 6 months, but sustained, like, continuity
yeah.
of freedom, beyond just, like, moments, and it was so
Mm.
liberating to drop that. And I had been holding Jeff's question in my mind, throughout that retreat. So yeah, that's the origin. What about you?
Mm. Well, I hear you on mental loops. As you know, we we spent a good 10 or 15 minutes talking about my mental loops before we began recording today. So
Mm.
I sympathize. I sympathize with that. And so I one of the features of my existence, at least thus far, is I very often have like a lot of tension in my neck and in my shoulders. Um, and I remember I was sitting in meditation and I was sitting with one of my teachers, and I should pause here to say that when I say teachers, um Sometimes I mean a human person or a mentor. Sometimes I mean a plant. Sometimes I mean a mineral. Sometimes I mean something from the animal world. I really believe that our teachers are everywhere. Um, and there's so many things offering different vibrations that we can learn from. And so I was sitting with one of my teachers, one of my non-human teachers, and I said, "What can I do to release this stiffness and this tension in my body?" And the reply that I got was, "Stop trying to be right." And I was like, "What?"
Mm.
And it just was it felt like such a high level response to sort of a low level question. Um, and then I really just, in that moment, really started to think about, wow, like how different would I feel in my body if I could release that need to be right.
Mm.
And because so much, right, of being able to change your behavior is if you're able to get a felt sense or a kind of imprint in the body of what it would feel like to behave in a different way. That's so powerful. Um, b- but then it also it really just attuned me to, starting to notice, right? Starting to notice all of the ways in which I was trying to be right. And for me, a lot of that was mm, a lot of it really felt like conditioning around hierarchy of like being, in conversation or in relationship. And for reasons of, I think, control, wanting to feel sort of safe and in control of the situation, um, wanting to be right. And as I was thinking about it before this episode, I was kind of starting to break that down, this idea of trying to be right and what the sort of needs were. And I think one of the needs is to be in control. One of the needs is to be the one who knows, that sort of pressure to seem that you know something, or the power of, being seen as the expert or whatnot. And then also just the desire not to be seen as foolish, right? To be caught out, to not know. Um, and so there's so many subtle layers to it. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the awakening moment for me.
Mm. What's an example of like how it shows up relationally?
Mm, I mean, it can be in like tiny, shitty, little like petty ways of like where just like I'm talking to someone and I want to be like, I want to be the one who knows how to do something, or I want to be the person who like knows the explanation of the word or like how to do the thing or something like that. I want to I want to know. I want to kind of not be in this position of feeling like I don't know and I'm not in control of the situation. Like I think there's so much of a component of control to it.
Mm.
Yeah.
What are you trying to control?
Phew, girl.
And I'm really curious because, as
Yeah.
a like a very, still in recovery know-it-all, like I can relate to that idea of like wanting to always know.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of the character, but my friend Dan always says that I'm like the Reese Witherspoon character in Election.
Oh, right. Tracy Flick.
Yeah, Tracy Flick. And he says that because I'm organized when we teach together, because somebody
Yeah.
fucking needs to be organized, right? Like, but you know, I I really can relate to that, but I'm curious about the idea of control.
Mhm.
For me, it's more certitude, which maybe is it
Mm.
like an aspect of. I thought of the phrase "the tyranny of certitude" in thinking about
Yeah.
this episode, which maybe
Mhm.
is about control. And we've talked about,
Mhm.
our need to align our mics or paintings or whatever it is, the things on our desk in the last episode, that there's control there. And with this, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? There is this, I was thinking about this Paul Tillich quote, the theologian
Mm,
Paul Tillich. He said, the opposite of, what did he say? The opposite of doubt is not faith, it's certainty or certitude.
mm,
And that inability to be in the mystery, the not knowing, the fear, to go back to a couple of episodes ago of like, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't control things. That I'm wondering if you're talking about that, because you're talking about it relationally in conversation. Is it certitude? Is it control?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different levels to it, right? For me, the word hierarchy comes up because I think there is some of this conditioning around like this idea of like achievement and kind of like being on top or being above or whatever that is. Like I was thinking about this idea of I remember having an insight when I was sitting in a ceremony at one point, and it was sort of like a shifting of the way that I was thinking about things from a hierarchical model into another model. And in the hierarchical model, it was like in order for me to be seen as remarkable, I had to like separate myself from others, right? Or be like above others in order to sort of be like special or remarkable. And then I realized like, oh, if I allow everyone to be remarkable, then I can relax and I get to be remarkable too if we all just get to be remarkable, right? If the hierarchy is removed. Um, and so there was something really freeing and relaxing to me in that, but it was just kind of realizing how much of this, I don't know, I guess like hierarchical kind of uh, meritocratic, achievement oriented mindset has like just sort of inside me in like such a deep way. And there's something about like trying to be right that's connected into that, if it makes sense.
Yeah, well, girl, it's only you. Um, one
I
of the
was
things of
worried it was just me and I was the only one with this problem,
totally,
so it's good to
yeah,
have that verified.
get it together. Um, there's so much we could say about like the culture of dominance
Mhm,
and hierarchy that we live in, that I think is really related to what you're saying. And I think that there's also something in it spiritually, in terms of let's, talk about kind of the major patriarchal religions that most of us are um,
mm,
steeped in, even if we weren't raised in it. It surrounds us, this transcendent model of sort of like
mm, yeah,
ascending out of this realm, this body, this messiness into some kind of perfection that
yeah.
is so much about being right, and
Mhm.
and being a particular way, and the perfectionism in that, like the
Yeah, and that you're not
certitude.
right now, right? Something's wrong now
Something's wrong.
that you have to rise above.
Someone else knows how to get to the right, and you have to follow that. And it's usually transcending anything messy, anything feminine, anything imminent and embodied, and getting to some hallowed ascendant place. And I have to say, actually, some of the like uh the narratives in spiritual communities, even medicine communities, it can tend towards
Sure.
that there's this achievement quality to it that's really um similar. And
The
yeah,
old
if
spiritual competitiveness.
yeah, and spiritual bypassing, and
Yeah.
And what you're describing of, like, this remarkableness of everyone, I find that astrology really helped me to connect to that because
Mm.
I was there's a comparing quality that is involved with that certitude and hierarchy and domination, and
Mhm.
when I started to understand my chart and the uniqueness of everyone's chart and the uniqueness
Mm.
of every person, it was so liberating. There's no right. There's just me and you and someone else and our dogs and our
Mhm.
cats and our and it's like every being. I love how you can cast a chart for anything. You can cast a
Yeah.
chart for, like, a business. You can cast a chart for, when you potted that plant or and so everything has its unique time and place and expression, and there's something so beautiful about that.
So beautiful. And it's making me think of I remember talking with a friend who was, talking to me about, like, a certain, kind of the precepts of a certain training that he was doing, and this idea that all violence comes from the idea that, like, you know better than someone else,
Mm,
um, and how kind of akin to your idea of astrology and that we all have, just an utterly unique alignment of stars and planets and everything else that, like, if you really are to put yourself in someone else's shoes, that if you had every single life experience that that person had, every single interaction, their exact family structure, all of the things, right? That you would make every single decision that they made in exactly the same way that they made them.
that's my George
Um,
Bush meditation.
that's your George Bush meditation.
Yeah, I
Do
wrote
you, do
about
you
it in
want to
my
say
book.
say more?
Well, I was this is, simpler times, the Gulf War, and I was just, like, incensed every day reading the paper, and
Mhm.
I went to, POC sit actually, and my friend La, um, I was talking about how upset I was, and they said, "Oh, have you tried giving George Bush metta, like making him your difficult person in a loving kindness practice?"
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh." So I went home and I designed my own metta practice for George Bush. So, loving kindness is where you send, these well wishes to someone, but I did it by imagining his entire life from conception. So imagining
Uh-huh.
him growing inside Barbara Bush, living in the Bush household, growing up as a Bush. And took time. And of course, conceptually, I understood what you're saying,
Right.
if you were this, but it took me time to, if it, I think it took me about a month to really feel like, "Oh, I would be George Bush," and something changed for me. I'm not saying that, I
Wow.
don't. Yeah. It really shifted something for me, and it's so funny
Mm.
because so many people who've read my book say that that's the one thing that they are so challenged by in there.
And are you able to name in any way what was the thing that shifted?
It's not like, a it's not something tangible, but it was like a real attitude shift around allowing people to be themselves.
Mhm.
That really changed for me, and of course, I'm fuck it up all the time, and, it shows up, um, like the opposite of that in certain
Mhm.
relationships that trigger me, but I'm able to have that perspective in a way that I could not before that.
Mm.
Yeah, like, it really feels like a part of me to be able to understand that everyone is who they are.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think it's so I interesting that idea that this idea that you know better is a kind of violence in a way, like,
Yes.
you and I had talked about it makes me think, when I had my podcast Hurry Slowly and you came on, I remember at one point we had a conversation where we were talking about giving people advice, which again, of course, is a form of like thinking that you know the right thing that someone should do, right? And how that can be a kind of violation to sort of presume that you know what this person should do in a given situation. Um, yeah, it just plays out at so many different levels.
And it's so humbling because, again, as a in recovery know-it-all, like, I I'm constantly giving advice that's not asked for. I try and ask people if they want my feedback, but it's
Mhm.
hard, especially, and I think it's harder in our most intimate relationships, where we're just
Yeah.
seeing someone do the same thing over and over again, or behaving in a particular way, and it's just so hard not to want to point something out, and maybe they're not ready to see that, or they never will see it, or and that is as true for me. Like,
Yeah. And interestingly, and also not receiving the advice, and especially in a culture where we're so used to exchanging and transacting in that way, is its own kind of discomfort. Because, I was thinking about a friend of mine who really doesn't give advice. She does not give advice. And if I want advice from her, I have to explicitly ask for it. And I
mm,
remember when I was talking to her when I was in, some real pain after my last breakup, and I was kind of telling her what was going on, and she 100% listens to me. She 100% empathized with me, and we're just walking through the woods, but she wouldn't say anything, she's not offering anything. She's just listening. And so then I had to be with all of my uncomfortable feelings about the fact that I didn't know what to do about what was happening. Whereas if she had offered me some advice, then that would kind of, uh, you know, have taken me away from being with those uncomfortable feelings. So
mm.
there's all kinds of interesting dynamics around that.
Yeah, and I feel like the other side of that is, in my certainty or certitude. I remember when I first split up with my ex-husband, um, people who knew him and us together the most, spent the most time with us. Those few people were saying the same things over and over to me, and I couldn't hear them because I
Mm,
was sort of in my certainty about what was happening. Which
right.
was a lot of, like, self-pity and,
Mm,
misery and grief,
yeah.
and which I needed to feel,
Hmm.
but they were pointing out things to me, and dynamics that I couldn't sort of hear at the time, that actually were in, sort of, subjective terms, were more favorable towards me. Like, they were
Mm,
making me, seem better in some way, but I couldn't hear it.
yeah.
And it's so interesting. And I've taken to start asking for feedback more because I don't know what I don't see, and sort of
Yeah.
asking for feedback about feedback I've given. Was that too much, or I feel like I might have stepped, and that I think helps with this sort of, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Because there's a way in which not being curious about myself or about the dynamic is part of that, um that, like,
Hmm.
certitude. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of getting stuck in that certitude. And that I feels the craving for, well, there's sort of the being stuck in the certitude, but then there's also, right, the craving for certitude and the kind of control that we think that will give us, which feels so relevant to this particular moment in time where everything feels so uncertain and so unpredictable and things are changing so rapidly. Um,
And people think they're so right.
and
And
yes,
by people, I
some
mean
people
me.
double down.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting, I think, that we think that um, the certitude will give us freedom, you know? So for
Mhm.
example, I have been in this process of, putting my house on the market and, trying to sell it, and, as as we've talked about offline, it's been a really, really intense roller coaster and very, for the cosmic perspective, very Mercury retrograde. It's like a buyer comes in, they go away, they come back. It's just been this kind of revolving door roller coaster situation, which has been really hard on my nervous system, I and so I keep kind of getting invested in, like, a certain narrative or, like, a certain kind of certitude, right? Like, "Okay, this is gonna be the outcome." Like, "Okay, this is gonna be the outcome," and then it just and then it dissolves or it changes, it's like, "Oh, it's gonna be this outcome," dissolves, changes. And, I think I was texting with you a little bit about this, last week. I had an evening where all of a sudden so the process has been fairly nerve-wracking, and I keep kind of getting to a place where I'm like, Okay, I'm okay with what's happening now," and then something will change, and then I have to kinda, recalibrate myself again. And I was, in my house after dinner, and I was just feeling really good. I was feeling really light, and I was like, "Why do I feel so good?" And I was kinda going through everything that had happened in my day. Did I take a certain supplement? Like, did I eat something? Did I, like, have less caffeine? Like, what is it? Like, why do I feel so much better? And I realized that was or what I think happened was that I had just let go of trying to, like, that need for certitude of trying to control the outcome of what was gonna happen with the house. I kind of had gotten to this point where I was like, "Maybe it'll sell, maybe it won't sell, like, we'll see what happens?" And there was a real freedom that arose from that, and,
Oh
um
my God, that Buddha guy was right. Have you ever
It
heard
works!
the monkey and the banana story of, like, there's a monkey that one of the ways they catch monkeys
Tell us.
is
Tell us the monkey story.
they put a banana in a cage, and the bars of the cage are narrow
Mm,
enough or wide enough for the monkey to get the hand through, but too, narrow to, like, also take the banana out, and
mhm.
so they catch them because they won't let go of the banana.
Yeah, I remember this was the thing this was in the red fern groves, that was how they would catch, I think, like, raccoons. It was a similar thing, like, the
Mm,
closed fist, right, could
right.
not
Yeah, the
come out,
clinging,
right?
and
Yeah.
there's that misinterpretation of the noble truths that, like, it was translated as, like, desire is the root of suffering, but it's really clinging.
Mm.
So it's not our wanting things, like, of course, you wanna sell your house, but it's the clinging to, like, "It has to be now, it has to be this way, it has to be," and it's
Yeah.
like, we don't know, like, we don't know certainly don't know what's gonna happen.
Mhm.
We don't know what's right, we don't know what's right for us, we don't know how, and it's, yeah, it's really can be so liberating to just be like, "Okay, I've done what I can," and I've
Yeah.
put all the pieces into play, and I've invited the beings, seen and unseen, to support me in the process, and, and
Yeah.
energetically, like,
Release the illusion of control. Yeah, it's
yeah, yeah,
so challenging.
right. I wonder if there's, like, there are variations, like, do you wanna be right or do you wanna be free? Do you wanna be certain or do you wanna be free? Do you wanna be
Mhm.
perfect or do you wanna be free? Do you wanna be on top or do you wanna be free? And
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you
I
have
was thinking
any
about
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you have any other kind of moments where you feel like you were able to sort of be in that space of freedom that feel kind of particularly of note?
Related to this, it always comes for me from deep practice because I've spent so much of my spiritual practice in retreat, in silent meditation retreat, which is an
Mhm.
opportunity to really observe our own mind states and remove the kind of elements of complexity with our relationship to others. So we're still in relationship to others because I don't do solo retreats.
Mhm.
I might do, sort of smaller retreats and retreats where you have more access to the personal space, but you're still in a retreat center, right? So
Mhm.
there's all sorts of dynamics that can come up. And so, yeah, I've always experienced those moments of freedom when I can slow down enough to really see the subtle layers of this stuff. And actually, now what
Mhm.
comes to mind is um, the first time I heard the teachings on mana,
Mm.
MANA, which is a Pali word that's often translated as conceit,
Mm.
but the etymology is to measure, and it's really the comparing mind. And it's
Mhm.
said that mana is our comparing of anything, not just people, but our comparing of better than, less than, or greater than, less than, or equal to.
Mhm.
So it's not just like, up or down, but it's also like the separation itself, because equal to is still comparing.
Mm.
And I remember when I first heard that teaching, I was like, I remember the retreat I was on and like hearing it, and it might not have even been the first time I heard it, but the first time it like penetrated me, where I was like, oh, equal to, that this is a teaching about separation. It's not just a teaching
Mhm.
about hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
And that to me was really powerful. And and the teacher, Joseph Goldstein, who was talking about it, he kept saying mana, mana. And I started thinking about Manamana, the Sesame Street song. And so you're totally not supposed to write on retreat. Like it's like one of the rules, like you're not supposed to talk, you're not supposed to write, you're not supposed to read.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, I was going through a lot that retreat. It was a 2-week retreat. I was like one of 3 people of color on the retreat. I was the only like
Mm.
dark skinned person, and I was like fucking losing my mind. And Joseph was the teacher I was most connected to. So I was just like writing him notes like all the time. Like you're allowed to write teacher notes, but like I was a little overboard. And he was very sweetly like responding to my notes. But then I wrote a version of the Manamana song about mana and sent
Oh
it to
my
him.
wait. Wow. Do you remember the song? Like,
Oh, totally. I sing it all the time in classes and stuff.
so you
Yeah.
wrote that as like a note to Joseph
Yes,
Goldstein?
and he did not respond to it. I should ask him. I never asked him about it again. I wonder if he remembers it.
Oh my god, that's so good.
This was so long ago. He probably doesn't. But yeah. So
Mm.
that's what I do on my retreats, guys.
Right, yeah, you
I don't know
reinvent
what you're
Sesame
doing on
Street
your
songs.
retreats.
That's so good.
Yeah, I'm writing
Ah,
Muppet songs.
I feel like I know you so much better now.
Yeah.
Well, it's that equal to is so interesting, and it takes me back to the idea I was talking about in the last episode of sacred is not separate, sort of a similar theme. Um, and it's also making me think about just our culture and how much self-help and how to is baked into our culture now, and this idea of there being a right way to do things and that someone can tell you the right way to do things. And I feel like there's a whole other layer of kind of um rightness or thinking that you can be right that kind of percolates into us, and is I guess another layer of conditioning that really comes in through that kind of how to culture and this perception that there is maybe one right way of doing things as opposed to, you know, whatever idiosyncratic way it is that works best for you to do something. I feel like that's something that I'm always in dialogue with folks when I do courses and when I do communities and when we're trying to really connect with our more um, creative selves and to feel that sense of freedom of being in creative flow is to kind of fend off this idea that there is kind of a right way to do things. I'm curious, like, does that
Yeah.
come
Yeah,
up for you
totally.
as
I mean,
well?
even the idea of nibbana or awakening as like this endpoint, which is so baked into certain Buddhist teachings, and is you can feel echoes of it in other traditions and religions and spiritualities, but like that there's like something to get to and we're done, and that we're not human beings on a continual process of awakenings, and not just this like endpoint of enlightenment. Um, yeah, I really feel that and struggled that myself because of the conditioning I've had in my own spiritual training to think that way and having to really dial that back. And I think mentioned this before, to always teach from a place of vulnerability and just reality of like who I am, trying to write from that as much as possible, and not write in sort of this global we of experience and how it should be, but this is how it is for me right now. That is, it feels much less certain, like it's not strong ground. It's that joke. Yeah, the bad news is that you are pushed off the cliff um without a parachute, and the good news is
Yeah.
there's no ground, and
Yeah.
and just
You've sent me that one for comfort before.
yeah, it's
Like,
it's it's really like to
yeah.
really lean into that. And I heard from my friend Kyra Jewel Lingo is a great teacher. She was talking about I can't remember who she was quoting, but someone saying that like awakening is just a continual process of becoming more and more relaxed.
Mm.
And that certitude and certainty is like this tension of like the monkey holding the banana. Let it go of that banana, monkey. And everything will be all right. You can go back to swinging in your trees.
Yeah, precisely. Well, right, and that's, like,
Yeah.
right back to where we started with my thing, like, how can I release this tension, Stop trying to be right, that's
Yeah,
it, and just
right.
this and for me, that's so true, this process of relaxation. I mean, that's what I come back to again and again and again, right? This the tension around it, and I remember I was talking to one of my teachers who's an actual human, about working on relaxing, and she was like, "I don't know if that's, like, quite the right language." Working
All
on
the
relaxing.
working on anything. I remember Jenny Patterson, a friend, who's a really great herbalist and
Yeah.
writer and breathwork teacher, and she had this uh, kind of program that she coordinated around breath work. And I was like, do we have to call it work? Can we call it breath play or breath, like, just the adding the work to anything is I think I mentioned that last time, like I'm really trying to drop this identity of a worker, which is so baked into
Yeah.
me. I can feel that so much with maybe also that being right, like being that Tracy Flick of like, got all my pencils sharpened and all my, you know, posters and pins out, like ready to go,
Yep.
and bringing that to like every project, quote unquote, that I'm engaging in. Like maybe we need to do a real audit. Maybe we can do an episode on like auditing our language and like substituting, really more playful
Oh, yeah.
and beautiful words for all the bogus words we've been given for things.
Yeah, it's so powerful. That is 100% a constant, ongoing internal renovation project for me, looking at the language for how I communicate with myself, um,
Yeah. I know that's like a whole
internally.
like neuro-linguistic programming, whatever that is. I never like delved into it. It seemed like
Yeah.
culty or something. But it like the basic premise sounds good to me. Um
Yeah. Yeah, well, and just the idea that everything has vibration, right? So specific words have specific vibrations, even at the most basic level of that, um, and, you know
especially manamana.
especially Manamana, so healing. Um, when I'm a Capricorn rising, so, like, I relate so much to that, right? This, just the struggle and having things be hard, and I have been doing so much reflection for the past, many years about just my expectation that things will be hard, that they should be hard, again to your idea of work, And there's so much inside of those expectations about the energy with which you approach something, and then, what happens because of the energy with which you approach it.
Yeah. And some things are hard. And so as someone who's been through many hard things, then there's the attitude we take to it, right? Like
Mhm.
we make the easy things hard and we make the hard things worse. And so
Yeah.
again, it's that clinging, it's that tension, it's that lack of ease, and what I often call like the contention with reality,
Yeah.
of like being in contention with how things are. And that's so much right now, just contending with the chaos of this moment and navigating like how, and we've talked about this before here, but how do you engage with it in a way that, yes, like you setting up the circumstances for the best outcome for selling your house, how do you set up the best circumstances for engaging with your community, or helping organizations or people who are really in the front lines of resistance, or like
Yeah.
how do you do that without the constant hysterical feeling that like should not be the way it is. Well, it is the way it is. Like that's just the truth, and there are many reasons why it's the way it is. And yeah, that
Mhm.
also feels like, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? No, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be this way. You are right. And if like you're clinging to that, and I usually say we or I, but like I actually don't feel that. Like I'm saying you because I'm talking to some listeners who might identify with this. Like to yeah, how do we relax around things um without being irresponsible or uh callous or numb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not complacency, right? But just
Mhm.
relaxing, the grasping for just wanting it to be different. Like, I feel like that is what I've been sitting with so much lately, is just that awareness of, like, how it all comes down to just that contention of just wanting it to be different than it is,
Yeah,
and
and
releasing that.
um I was listening to a podcast with an interview with, I think his name is Kazu Haga. I've been following him for a while. He's really wonderful um writer and activist, and um uh practitioner of Kingian nonviolence. And he was talking about this, like I think he called it negative peace, that
Mm,
Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, as that relaxation doesn't mean that we don't respond,
mhm.
because we're actually better able to respond because we're not tense.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a passivity. And negative peace is the peace that is at the expense of justice.
Mm,
And
mhm,
he was mentioning that Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested, I don't know, like 40 times in his life, and like half of them were under the charge of disturbing the peace,
mm,
right? And so, like, I've heard some people say, well, I mean, ICE they're arresting people who are breaking the law, and it's like, yeah, fucking Harriet Tubman was breaking the law, and
mhm,
the Anne Frank was breaking the law. Like we're
mhm.
like it's the law and peace in the ways that it's presented to us, and relaxation and sort of wellness as it's sold to us. They're not true peace, because
Yeah.
they're ignoring something, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, freedom that is like including all of the mess.
Yeah, right? Like that, not wanting things to be different from the mess, from the injustice, from the chaos too, right? Like it's not like we're just relaxing and not noticing those things anymore. Um in a way it allows us to be more in dialogue with those things because we're not pretending that anything's different than it is, right?
Yeah. Even if we're right. So
Well,
my
that feels like a
friend,
good place to wrap up, yeah?
yeah, it sounds like good. Um,
Um, maybe our final question, what is, bringing you maybe a little bit of lightness or joy or humor in life right now?
hmm. Well, if what comes to mind is last night I went with my friend Shauna to hear Toshi Reagan. He's been
Oh,
doing this kind of like tour of the city with this
uh-huh.
program Toshi and Friends, and so the final performance, the 10th performance, was last night at BAM,
Mm,
and it was Toshi and a full band, amazing singers and musicians, and one of my favorite singers, Alsara and the Nubatones, is her band, but Alsara was there and sang a gorgeous piece. She's a Sudanese musician, and um, there was a woman named Taina something, I don't know, and she sang an amazing salsa song called Sofrito, which was so fun to like just dance to. And these
mm,
3 Black women got up and did like this kind of disco song, and Toshi brought in some of the pieces from uh, the Parable of the Sower uh,
yeah,
opera that she created with her late mom, Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it was really special and just lots. I was so tired. I had to keep sitting down and kind of closing my eyes, but then I would get up and dance. And yeah, so that was really fun.
Oh, yeah, that sounds amazing. I miss being able to go to events like that in the city.
Mm.
Mm,
What
I
about you?
was yeah, I was thinking about this question, um, and I think, my brother, who I'm very close to, we have a really I'm so grateful for our relationship, and, we really are able to talk about a lot of the hard things that each of us are dealing with, but one of the things that I really love about him is that he also is the person who probably most sends me, like, memes of cute animals or things like the, Instagram post that I forwarded it to you today of that, like, amazing being, in a tiara hula hooping to an incredible song remixed with an Enya song at once in an incredible costume. Uh, they were really, as I said to you, looked like they had chosen, freeness over rightness.
For sure.
Um, yeah, so just, like, so grateful for him and, just the lightness of these little messages of, um, freedom and lightness and animal snuggles and all the things. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. Cool.
Well, wanna say thank you to everyone for sharing your ears with us, for sharing your attention with us today. If you would like to stay in touch with 7A and myself, we both are writing on Substack. 7A writes a really beautiful Substack called Remind Me to Love, which I highly recommend. One of the only emails I allow to actually come into my inbox. And I write a newsletter called Radiate, which is about creativity and consciousness. You can subscribe to that. And we would love it if you are enjoying the show, if you would write us a review, if you would leave a rating on whatever platform you're listening on. That helps us get discovered, find new listeners. We would love to keep doing this. So, yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for your presence. Wishing you some moments of cosmic insight in the weeks ahead. And we'll leave you with this final moment of clown.
Capitalism is a fucking dick. Um, and